Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This is my repeat guest, Matt Geerts.
Hey, everybody.
Full disclosure, he has been putting out some YouTube videos, and one of his videos was really awesome that I really liked. So instead of ripping him off, I decided to get him back on the show. It's just like that's kind of the game plan. Is I hear stuff around and I'm like, hey, that was good. Come on my show and redo it. So, Matt, let's talk about return on. No, you know what? Let's do your intro first. Tell us about yourself, and then we'll jump into return on equity.
Sounds good. My name is Matt Geerts from Geerts Capital Investment. I've been investing for just under 4 years, doing BRRRR strategies, some wholesaling, some flipping, this and that. You can learn a bit at mattgeerts.com or hit me up on Facebook as my number one. You can find me as Matt Geerts or join the London Creative REI Meetup Facebook group. That's where I spend a lot of time.
Yes, and actually we'll plug his group a bit too because I love his group. I love going to lots of meetups, but actually my favorite ones, there's one in North York and there's one in London that are both, actually there's one in Kitchener now too, where there's a meetup where it's just like meet up and network. It's not about the speaker, it's about building your network and bouncing ideas and learning that way, which whenever I go to other meetups, a lot of people just skip out after the speaker, which blows my mind because that doesn't make any sense because the real value is talking to people. At least when I go to meetups, that's what I want to go to. A lot of times I'm like, I prefer there not to be a speaker unless it's something I'm really interested in to just network. So if that's for you, if that's your interest, get over to Tiger Jack's on, I think it's like the second Tuesday, something like that.
Nearest Tuesday to the 15th every month, 6:30 p.m. at Tiger Jack's in London.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for saying that it's one of your favorites. It's one of my favorites, obviously. It's my meetup. But, I've been running it for almost 4 years now. And, I really like that factor that I was there from 6:30 p.m. until midnight 2 nights ago. And, that's 6 hours of just chatting with other people in the business instead of sitting quietly through presentations. I have a hard time with that. It's nice to go to those meetups where there's a good amount of people that go to the bar after the meetup and you can have that real one-on-one chat. But when the whole 6 hours is just people talking about, what they can do for each other, what they need from each other, and what their strategies and goals are, it makes for a really valuable meetup. Yes,
and like you did that last month too. Because I think everyone else cleared out at like 9 or 10 o'clock, and the two of us shut that place down, and the bartenders kicked us out. And then we talked in the parking lot.
Yeah, I'm there past midnight.
Yeah,
just about every time. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get focused. So
yeah, let's get on with it.
Yeah. So you did a great presentation on return on equity. So tell us a little bit about like why why use return on equity as even a statistic. And like, hold on, everybody. If you're like, oh, this sounds like a numbers one, everything. There's a lot to grasp here, and there's a lot, especially for Ontario investors, to like. You can realize that there's a lot of money to make more money in your properties, and there's a way to use it properly. And Matt will take this over, but don't turn out because you hear numbers. We'll keep it lively.
You keep it totally lowbrow for sure. There's a real simple way to explain it, right? It's like without diving into any numbers or formulas or anything. It's you want to be getting a good returns on what you're investing, right? You want your investments to have good returns. What does good returns mean? Let's say with a property you already own. I created this video because I made a spreadsheet that I was using to make a decision about whether or not to keep my properties or sell them. I'm in a bit of a cash crunch, and I'm a numbers guy. I like to go through the advanced math and figure out the right answer. But the simple way to explain it is simply, if I sold a property, how much money would I have in my hands after all the cost of sale and even some estimate for how much taxes I would pay? Everybody's situation with taxes is different. So whatever, I just kind of fudged the numbers and came up with something.
Yeah.
How much money would I have in my hand versus how much cash flow does the property spit out each month? And how much total gain am I getting out of that property each month, right? So the cash flow is after all the bills are paid, how much cash is coming out. The total return is, the cash flow plus the mortgage pay down plus maybe some assumption of appreciation, if you're into that.
Yeah.
So, you want to make sure that you're getting a good number. So this particular property that I ran the number on, the cash on equity, so the amount of cash flow per, money that I could have in my hand, was like 1%. It's like I might as well just have in a GIC, because GICs don't have toilet leaks.
Yeah, and we should say, like, this isn't we're not talking about like a cash on cash return. And you're going, why the hell does Matt have a 1% cash on? That's not what he's saying, because he bought the property in the past and he bought it for way cheaper. And there's a lot. He's counting all this appreciation as basically down payment. Like, you counting it the same way, because it's your money that's sunk in that deal, even if it's nothing you can touch because it's stuck in appreciation, or equity, I guess, wrong word. But anyway. Continue, but that's kind of, I just want people to not think he's buying 1% properties.
No, that'd be a crap deal. But that's the funny thing, is that now over time, because a couple of things happened with that property. One, I did a refi, which means that my borrowing expenses went up.
Yep.
Two, the property's worth way more. It appreciated like crazy because it was just in the right spot in London, in the south of town. Right after I bought it, they cleared the land south of there and built a high-end new development. And then the other thing is that the condo fees went up. So, and rent control. Thank you, Ontario government. We can't make any money in rentals that we hold for a long time because, rents are doing this and rent control is doing this.
Yep.
So because I have 2016 rents coming in and I've got, 2020 value in the property, plus the higher condo fees and the higher lending fees, essentially my cash flow out of that property, assuming zero vacancy, which is dumb, assuming zero repairs, which is dumb, my cash flow is like $90 a month, right? So like just doing the hard costs versus the rent coming in, it's $90. Like it's not worth, I'd invest $5,000 maybe for $90 a month, but what I figured was I have, after I pay the taxes, I'll have like $85,000 in my hand after taxes if I sell this property. So it's just crazy to have, instead of $85,000 in cash that I can go and invest, I just lend it to somebody at 12%. So that's kind of my benchmark, is that if a property is not going to give me a return on equity of at least 12%, then there's no reason to own it. I can just sell it and take the money and either invest it in a better ROI property, return on investment, or just lend it out to somebody at 12% interest plus points and do really well that way. Even stuff that money into a tax-free account like a TFSA. So it's just making sure it's basically curating my portfolio to make sure that I'm not just locking up piles of money somewhere for no reason, just so that somebody can have the opportunity to live for cheap, and I'm not making any gains on it, right? Like, I'm working hard in this business, I want to make gains. So doing that spreadsheet told me without a doubt, and I was doubting it just by doing it emotionally, by thinking, am I making enough money here? Is it going well? Those are really, really subjective questions. But when you run it all through the spreadsheet and it tells you that your return on equity is your cash on equity is 1%. I think my return on equity was 4%, which is still really weak. So it just became obvious that I need to sell that property. Like, I'm wasting my money, I'm wasting my time by hanging on to that thing. And it's risky, right? You never know when something might go wrong that cost me $20,000 on the property. Who knows? Right.
And so, like, I've heard this from, maybe I won't drop names, but one of these podcasts I listen to, and they have like a good 100 houses per portfolio kind of thing. And what they do is every year, they're always buying, but every year they sell off like 2 houses in the bottom, whatever has the lowest return on equity, get rid of them and start over, and then reinvest that into new stuff to put up at the top. And stuff keeps working its way down, doing the cycle and cycling through the whole thing and going. Okay, one thing I wanted to touch on with yours, you talked about taxes. So a lot of people, they got to factor in more than just the really simple cost. If I sold this property, what other things should we have in this spreadsheet to subtract from the cost? Like, probably a realtor. What other things should they have in this spreadsheet to make sure that they get to the right thing at the bottom, that they're making an informed decision?
Yeah, I hate seeing people think that they bought a property for $150 and now it's worth $250, so now I have $100,000 in equity. But that's not really how it works.
Right.
So from your $250, right off the bat, I like to say 5% for the cost of sale. Realtors around here are usually 4%, like two and two for the selling realtor and 2 for the buying realtor. But I just like to say 5% for conservation. And then I also just throw in $2,000 to cover just whatever. So, the extra percent, the extra $2,000, that's going to cover my lawyer, and just whatever little things that I need, right? I'm going to go in there into the building and just, who knows, maybe there's a bad scuff in the paint or something that I want to fix up and
yeah, you never know. If you're not selling it as is, the buyer might ask for some little silly thing to get fixed first.
Some little silly thing, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Like $2,000 just poof in a property, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
So if I had expected repairs, right? Like if I knew that it needed a roof before I sold it, I'd slap on the $5,000 on top of that $2,000. So it's like a $2,000 unknown expenses pot, as well as the 5% for the realtor, and I can basically consider that my cost of sale.
Yeah. Okay.
You talked about taxes after that, right?
Oh, right, taxes, yes.
So the taxes are a little tricky. So, I've done a refi in the property. So what I'm going to get out of the property when I sell it is not just, the sale price minus the cost of sale minus the mortgage. That is what I'll get out of the property, but that's not what I'm being taxed on. Because I did a refinance, what the mortgage is on it now is higher than what I paid for it in the first place. So what I'm going to get taxed on is the capital gain, which is my cost basis, which is what I paid for the property, plus all of the cost of getting to the first day of rental. So that's the land transfer tax, the lawyer, setting up the utilities in my name. Those all have administration fees, having the utility bill for the month or 2 that it took me to rent it when I first bought it, any repairs that went into the property before I actually got a tenant in there. So all of the money spent up until the day the tenant comes in, that's the cost basis. Yeah. Now, I'm not an accountant. Ask your accountant. Pretty sure that's good. And then we look at the sale price minus the cost of sale. And the difference between your cost basis and your sale price minus the cost of sale, that's your capital gain. Now your capital gain then is taxed at our capital gains rate. 50% of your capital gain is added to your income tax, your taxable income for the year.
Yeah.
So in my scenario, both my wife and I, we share the property. So the profits, so the price minus cost of sale minus mortgage comes in, and then we look at the capital gain, divide that by 2, we split it, it gets added to each of our income, and we're taxed at our regular tax rate for that. So because my wife is not employed and we get to split it and only 50% of the gains are taxable, it's a pretty fair tax treatment. So I'm gonna make the $90,000 or something and pay $6,000 or $8,000 in tax or something like that. So it's not that bad.
Cool. Is there anything else we want to touch on this topic?
Yeah, I guess the next thing to touch on is like how to figure out what you're going to reinvest into, right? So you're pulling this money out because it doesn't meet a particular threshold. So now you've got to look at how you're going to use your money to get a return that's better than that threshold. Yeah. So now when you're going to do the buy, you're not actually going to look at your return on equity. You need to look at your return on investment now, right? Your cash on cash and your return on cash as well. So it shouldn't be too confusing, but you look at whether or not you should sell the property based on your return on equity. And then the new property that you're going to buy is based on your return on investment. And then the moment that you've bought that property, immediately your return on equity is going to look higher because you actually have less equity than you've bought into the property at, right? You spend $100,000 to get into the property, but you now immediately have lost money because land transfer tax, lawyers, the eventual cost of sale, the eventual costs of, et cetera. Yeah. So if you bought the property, then immediately sold it, you wouldn't have $100,000 in your pocket unless you got an amazing deal, right? If you're talking to a wholesaler or you're going direct to seller, you get a ridiculous deal. So return on equity and return on investment they can go either way at the time of purchase. If you're buying full retail property, then your return on equity is way higher only because your equity is actually lower than what you invested because you're not going to get that much money back out if you're buying retail. MLS, realtors, full price, right? Competing.
Yep. Cool. I think to sum this up in one quick, like 2-sentence thing, look at what all of the money that's in your properties, look at all this equity that's sitting in your properties and not making you any money, evaluate that, and then if it makes sense, sell the property, get rid of it, or, depending what, there's all kinds of ways to get rid of properties, I won't get into that, and then move that same profit into stuff that will make you the returns you should be earning on your equity, because equity doesn't make you any money when it's sitting in a property.
Yeah, exactly. And return on equity can be all over the place. If you bought a house all cash, well, the equity in the property is basically the whole price of it. So although you might be getting a huge cash flow, it's only because you didn't leverage, and you're probably not getting a great return on equity because the whole property minus the cost of sale is equity. So yeah, just always keep in mind what your rate of return is on your portfolio, and your portfolio's value is that equity, that liquidated equity of what would be in your hand after you've sold. So I think I'm going to start doing it maybe twice a year. I'll start doing it every May and every December or something like that, and decide what properties are going to get the axe, so that I can move the money into better deals.
Why May and December? I would think you want to do like maybe January, so you could sell it up, like set it up perfectly, so whenever you hit like the spring market, you could, get all the fresh faces that are looking for cheaper houses.
Right. There's the spring market, but then there's also RRSP late contribution season.
Okay.
So if I can get this property sold before the deadline for RRSP contributions, I can stuff some of that money in to protect last year's taxes.
Okay. And then you can loan your RSP money to somebody, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And then if I'm looking at it in May, I can immediately do a quick sale and have cash ready for that ripe for investors fall market, right? Where you're getting the people who couldn't sell their house, or they're just off season, they're not going to get the best dollar.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for coming on the show, Matt. If people want to get a hold of you, how is the best way to do so?
You can email me, invest@mattgeerts.com. Just go to mattgeerts.com and check out my stuff. It's a little outdated. I'll try to work on that. Facebook, honestly, is the best way to do it. I have a bit of a reputation for being addicted to Facebook, so find me as Matt Geerts, or join the group London Creative REI Meetup, and it's pretty easy to find me on there.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Right on. Thanks, man.